How can you improve sales and cash in any business by 40%? Well, I call this what I refer to as the 5 Cs. Now, most business owners and so-called turnaround experts, in my experience, tend to focus only on the first C. And you'll see that the first C is actually the hardest one, I believe, to influence and usually requires you to spend money to do so. So firstly, let me just identify what these 5 Cs are. So they stand for crowd, conversion, cost, continuity, and cash. So the crowd is the number of potential customers or prospects that come into contact with your business. These are potential prospects that may wish to buy your product or service. The conversion is how many of that crowd you convert into actual sales and revenue. The cost is, of course, the amount you charge on average for each sale of your product or service. And the continuity is how many times that customer buys from you. So if you multiply all of those together, that gives you the 5th C, which is the cash result. So crowd multiplied by conversion, multiplied by the cost, multiplied by the continuity equals cash. So what most turnaround people and business owners think when they want to answer the question, how do I get more leads, is that they think about how they get an increase in that crowd. So whilst of course there are many free and simple ways to increase your leads and that crowd, in the main it's around spending money on advertising, Google AdWords, etc. So whilst I'm not saying that you shouldn't do this, if you can afford to do it, well, why not? But what if you could influence the other 3 Cs by just 5%? If you can do that, in most businesses you can get between 20 and 40% in additional cash just by influencing your conversion, your cost, and your continuity by just 5%. So if you think about it, if you can improve the conversion, so how do you do that? Well, have a better sales process. You could increase your prices slightly, so improving the cost. And you could get your customers buying from you more often than they do now. That will all generate more cash. And it's easier to influence these Cs by making improvements. It's much harder to generate the crowd improvement by getting more leads. So I've written a book on the subject of how you can improve any business in 30 days. And we specifically look at a case study of a business that I was involved in where we influenced the 3 Cs, the conversion, the cost, and the continuity. And it generated an additional 2 million in cash without actually us spending any money. So how do you influence those Cs? Well, these ideas and methods are just generic that I'm going to run through now because we don't have enough time to talk through things that are specific to certain industries, but you'll hopefully get the concept. So in terms of crowd, yes, there are free and simple ways that you can do better marketing to get more leads. And of course, you could spend money on this advertising, but what about writing PRs, writing blogs, posting on social media? Conversion. So when a customer comes into contact with you, how easy it is for them to buy from you. So if you're an online business and you're selling products through a website, is your website slick and easy to buy from? If customers buy face-to-face or from a store, how's your store laid out? Do you have special offers to encourage the sale? Are your staff trained on how to sell and close? What's the sales process? Now, if you sell over the web, you want it to really be as easy as it is to buy something from Amazon. I think when you find something you want to buy on Amazon, it's literally 2 clicks and it's done. The transaction is done. You want to make the process as easy as possible. Cost. Can you put your prices up? So in most markets, it's really uber competitive and it's really hard to do this. But what about the products or services that you don't sell many of? Could you put the prices of these up by 20 or 30% and leave your main product the same price? For example, you might be selling cars. Most cars, typically in my experience, are usually priced at around about the same level. So if you buy a Ford Fiesta from one garage to the next, brand new, they're generally probably going to be the same sort of price. But what about upselling a service plan? You might charge £99 for this now, but you could charge £125, for example. Continuity. So this comes back to really keeping your customers engaged. Do you have special offers or loyalty scheme? A company that I think does this really quite well is if you've ever ordered printed material from Vistaprint, so things like business cards, for example, when you've made your purchase, they provide several offers which are only available at the point of sale. I.e., you've just bought 1,000 business cards, but for an extra £2, you could have another 1,000. Or do you want to get some compliment slips or letterheads in the same design, but for 50% of the normal price? And this only offer is available today. So do you send out e-marketing to keep customers coming back to your website? How are you engaging your customers? So my suggestion would be to go and do more business is go and get your key people together and set them the task of brainstorming how they can influence each C by at least 5%, but they're not allowed to suggest anything that will cost money. I think you'll be quite surprised or amazed even at just some time out on a whiteboard and a flip chart, what that can do in terms of your team creativity. Try it, you might be surprised by the results.